All right. So when we're looking at prophylaxis and restriction, well, they're not exactly the same things. I think by looking at both, it helps you, understand exactly just what prophylaxis is. So as we were talking about, prophylaxis is basically prevention, right? Taking away your opponent's resources. That's a lot of it. Like Dvoretzky talks about, there's a book about understanding your opponent's resources. So you understand their resources and you take them away, basically. Yeah, it's largely just understanding your opponent's attacking ideas, their prospects, and you take it away in the future. We talked about like creating a loop for your king, h3 or h6, things like that, or taking away your weaknesses, or just knowing what their attacking plan is and stopping it. So whereas restriction, what do you guys think? Like, how would you differentiate that? I mean, restriction is pretty self-explanatory. Lynn, you talked about which game were you referring to?
V is for victory.
Yeah, if you and that's the chessgames.com one. Yeah,
that was that Capablanca or Fisher?
Yeah. That was Capablanca,
Capablanca,
I
right.
think 1920. Yeah, that's one of my favorite games to show.
Yeah.
Like really instructive. As you said, like when you think of restriction, you can't get that out of your head, right? That's just imprinted, this big V.
Right.
It's
Right.
aesthetically pleasing.
I mean, it can't get it out of my head, but I would just like to learn how to do it because it's such a wonderful, wonderful game, and it was done so brilliantly.
Exactly. And that's why it's so good to know your classics. I think I was thinking about that yesterday about like, chessable courses and stuff. I'm like, I don't know. I don't really do many. I mean, they're using the online resources, are you absorbing those fundamentals? Well, for me, it's like just showing you, I just show you the game. We can talk about how he does what he does. But when you read those, like, I don't know, like just any, like Chernev talking about logical chess move by move or something, like deep analysis of classic games. I don't know. I mean, you're getting snippets. You see what I mean? I think you get snippets from online sources sometimes. So I'm always a proponent of, just as we talked about the other time, all these resources, the books. But certainly, yeah, as long as those, as long as you get the main concepts from these resources online, but also the flow of it is important, the narrative, because as we saw with the V, he had to build that V. How do you get there? Well, at least in your mind, hey, I'd like to create that thing. At least you have a goal, like that pattern exists, right? Oh, I can make this V and like totally be like a boa constrictor. But then how do you get there? Of course, that's the other phase.
Well, you really have to study that game over and over and over again in order to do it, because I've tried it and it's hard, because you got an opponent, so you have to constantly study that game in order to even get an idea of how to maneuver with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because your opponent's not just going to go belly up for you. That's why it's so important to restrict them. I mean, either you hit them really hard, go boom, 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 and get a quick knockout, but that usually doesn't happen, right?
Well,
so that's where
you
respect your opponent, you respect them, and you stop. What's
the way he did it, he started at the very bottom of the pawns, with the pawn chain, and he branched it out into the V, and it was brilliant, just brilliant.
Yeah, and it's like it didn't have to go that way. Of course, it's not like he might have had that idea in mind, but of course, as he started pushing, his opponent kind of let him keep going. So like, okay, you want to give that to me? I'll take it. Because I guess his opponent was thinking, hey, if you're going to close everything down, fine, I'll get a draw. Well, the book by Chernev on Capablanca's best endings, a lot of people just try to trade down against him, and didn't tend to work because it
was total restriction.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of and like I thought of it though, because the game I played last night, largely I won because of restriction, because I mean, like it's a way of thinking. You might call it's almost paranoia, or like at least look over your shoulder, right? Because and like for example there, right? Because like you look over your shoulder, now you don't know that there's someone there. There may not be a threat, but it's possible there's like at least a few percent chance that there's someone. There's like, I don't know, under maybe a 1% or 0.5%, whatever. If you're walking somewhere that there's someone like behind you that you got to watch out for. You know what I mean? So you got to watch your back, obviously, right? There are some people that might want to, mug you or something, right? So, or kidnap you, right? So it's true, right? It's the threats are out there in the real world, right? Whatever it may be, whether but unfortunately, right? So it's just knowing that the threats exist. Now in a chess game, yeah, they might be specific, like playing h3 is like blind, like okay, I just don't want you to back rank me, just in case, back rank maybe. But with restriction is like very specific to the position, right? I mean, and taking away their attacking play specifically, what they want. Whereas prophylaxis can just be, again, like it might just be eliminating a weak. That's the thing. It might just be eliminating a weakness in your own position, purely defensive, right? It could be both. Whereas restriction is pretty much specifically pertaining to your opponent's prospects. I mean, in terms of their like restricting their pieces, for example. That may not have anything to do with something in your position. It might just be like, oh, in the future that piece might do something to you. Let's just not let it do anything, right? So it's like you tie their hands behind their back, basically. So whatever it may be, prophylaxis might be a little more specific. Oh, I have a weak point here. I have a back rank mate prospect, or they might back rank mate, something like that, right? But with restrictions, like, hey, a lot of it's just, because ultimately, what do you want to do in chess? You want to mobilize your pieces and checkmate your opponent or win stuff, right? So yeah, you just take that away by not letting their pieces out. That's a big part of it. It's pretty cool, actually. Check out this Immortal, the Immortal Tomb. Yeah, we're talking about Immortal games, but then there's like Immortal Tomb game, which I think it's a version of a Zugzwang. But he really ends up restricting them in the future. This one's great too. Another Capablanca game, Heavy Artillery. That's a beautiful game. But you see, there are. Yeah, that game involves, it's a mix, right? Yeah, but certainly, but he understands where there's, for example, a breakthrough possibility. He's really keeping his eye on that, and he doesn't let that happen. He also makes he makes a move. Well, first of all, he gets his king safe. He closes things down, but then he continues to restrict by ensuring that breakthrough never occurs effectively, right? Oh, that's cool. Karpov. I don't know what that one is. Karpov Zugzwang. So we can check out some of these and pretty cool games. But I definitely would recommend we start with the Immortal Tomb game. Pretty cool. So we have Zook. I don't know if that one's a pun on something. It just looks like a tomb. Halloween Open in was that BC, like British Columbia, I guess. Oh yeah, Burnaby. Yeah. It's outside of Vancouver, right? So the Tomb game. Let's see. Let's go to a little later, but we have a King's Indian, as we just looked at from the white side, King's Indian attack. See, remember we looked at that structure? Whether we looked at like maybe the knight would go to D2 for white, same concept, right? Or C6. Same thing as C3 or D2. So this would be the King's Indian, where you want to go F5 usually, right? Oh, they did the Bobby Fischer style. Do you guys remember that one? Oh, there's that V, right? A small V. We can push on both sides once we do that, like a Botvinnik system too. We have that V, we can play on both sides. Do you guys remember that Bobby Fischer game where he doesn't go straight for F5? It works very effectively against Korchnoi, I think it was. I did in that pawn break study I have that we looked at. Do you guys remember the Bobby Fischer C5 to contain? That's interesting, actually. That's the early version of restriction because it contains white C5 push. So it's very, very clear that, where white wants to play, rook C1, and the pawn change by F3, make a pawn change. So it's the classic way that white wants to play. We just know that through patterns, which you will get if you're not playing chess 960 or freestyle chess. We just know about this. So it's like, well, if we go C5, either they could take en passant, then we could probably take back. Now they lost a lot of their center. We can smash the center ourselves. So and we get bishop E6 in, they can't attack us anymore. So that would be a nice kind of reverse things. So C5 is containing or restricting them, but not in terms of like something super dangerous they could do. It's just stopping their play. So we got knight back to F6. That's interesting, actually. He didn't commit to F5. I don't know why. You think because that's the typical way to go. That's interesting. He didn't do that. Okay, what is he doing? Let's see what he's up to. Oh, he did it anyway. That's kind of strange, right? I guess there was something where he didn't like the bishop looking at his knight. I mean, he probably could have done it, but he decided against it. And often also, when we're looking at this, often we'll be taking back with our pawn. Oh, John just came in. Hey, John. How's it going? Here we go. Yeah, often we'll be taking, there's actually a by Silman, I don't know if you guys have seen, if you read Silman stuff, like in the workbook, he talks about taking back, even though it looks counterintuitive, take back with your pawn because you have this mobilization of your pawns. So it's a great example in the King's Indian. Oh, funny enough, actually, what we've done, it's almost a Czech Benoni, like CZ-ECH, almost a Czech Benoni structure, but usually a Czech Benoni be a mix of an Old Indian too. Old Indian, the bishop, same thing. The bishop goes to E7 instead of fianchettoing, as we were talking about. So you don't do the fianchetto. In this case, it's a hybrid, right? But by creating this V thing, we have a Czech Benoni structure. And so it's an interesting hybrid there. But often we will take back with the pawn to create all that square control. See that all that we're controlling all those squares in their half, right? On the fourth, in their fourth rank. But in this case, but actually, I think the reasoning here, well, you tell me, why do you think it, because of this structure specifically, probably Zuck has more grounds to do this. Why do you think he took with the knight instead of the pawn in this case? I mean, again, probably either one's fine, but what do you think he saw in terms of justification for this move?
The E4 square looks pretty good, or D4.
Yes, exactly, and
Yeah,
that's
D4.
that's attributable to the C5 push. So he knows, it's like, okay, if you take, well, funny enough, if you take, then he kind of does the same thing that he has the same thing that white has. Will be doubled, but it's like black will have the pawn in white's territory on D4, and white will have on D5. So the sort of counterpart. His pawns will be double. I don't know. Does he do that? Let me double check. Okay. Now that might be viewed. Let me see. That could actually be viewed as potentially a prophylactic move. Because see, if he thinks there might be a threat, like for example, let's say he knows B4 is going to happen and he wants to take back with the pawn. He's like, let me just, I mean, you probably don't need it, but it's not an immediate threat, but maybe he saw some line he didn't like or some prospect in the future, which it may have been embedded in a line. So he's like, okay, now you're not going to get to do that anymore. It may be, I don't know if he wants to play bishop a6. I doubt it. It doesn't seem like that's the place to go. So that's interesting. Okay, knight goes into the, now you're looking at some squares in his territory. Very nice knight here. Okay, so he does also pushes his f pawn. So both of us have some weaknesses whenever we move our f pawn near our king, right? Because then we go from 3-pawn shelter. See that fianchetto we talked about earlier? The fianchetto kind of acts prophylactically in a sense that, you know, you don't let anything in. Sometimes you will include h3, and I call it king goes to the second story or second floor on h2. Get a little bird's nest or something up there. But in this case, in this case, he's giving up some of that fianchetto shelter for aggressive purposes. So, for example, if we thought that was really a big deal, maybe we would go g5 to restrict him, you know? But then we weaken ourselves more by opening up our own king, but you never know. Or we get like g5, g4, so we take en passant, you know? So we might do that if you thought it was a big deal. So anticipating their pushes, that's a big part of restriction. But again, I think a little bit of a difference, the way I view it is prophylaxis is about something they can do specifically to us, like back rank made us or get to our weakness. Whereas restriction is just not letting them do something that they want, such as a pawn break. Now, it's not like the pawn break is necessarily winning for them, but it's just like their plan. It's kind of spoiling their plan, but and definitely restricting them. In doing so, you're certainly restricting their pieces, right? Okay. So now, well, our pieces are not so restricted, are they? We got 3 very nice pieces. Their piece is not so much. De facto, the bishop's restricted by, it's a bad bishop, restricted by its own pawn. Now, our quote bad bishop is on the same color of our central pawns, but they just traded off our pawn. Thank you very much. Now we have 2. Now it's not really. It's kind of moot that you consider it bad, that we might consider it bad because there's nothing really blocking. If anything, those pawns help anchor in the bishop, so it's not an issue for us. But his bishop, which is on the same color of his pawns, is not so good at all. It's purely defensive. So you can see we have 3 very active pieces plus the rook behind, and they have a rook there as well. That kind of neutralizes their bishop's bad. The knight's not going anywhere. So you can see their bishop's out a bit, but you can see we have 3 pieces that are much better than theirs. And then we obviously want to keep restricting them. But really,
and then you got your queen right there too that's restricting h4.
Which one? For
your black queen is restricting. You know, it's still got its eye on h4, so.
Well, that'll be harder for white to push those pawns too, right?
To push the pawns, yeah.
Yeah, like let's say he goes g4, you move the bishop, then you can't go h4. Exactly. Well, then not only that, well, then we would love to probe those squares, harvest some weak squares there. So that would be a very bad idea for his opponent because of our potential activity.
So he's got
queen's just lurking. She's just waiting to come in.
He's controlling almost the whole 4th rank, you know.
Yep. And
that's really good restriction. Really good restriction.
Yeah, like I said earlier about the 2 pawns on f5 and e5. It's kind of funny, the bishops. It's kind of like sometimes you'll play like for example, a Sicilian, you know, where white like wants to throw all their pawns at black's king. And often they will fianchetto, like in a close Sicilian. They'll fianchetto, you guys may recall that. And then it makes it easier. It's because the bishop acts like a pawn. So you can always tuck it back. It sort of substitutes the pawn. So these are sort of acting like, in terms of now they're not as dangerous as pawns in the sense you don't want to walk into the pawns, right? Because you can still walk into the bishop, maybe, but it's still, the point is it still has that influence, almost substituting those pawns. But even more so, it covers those not as dangerously as pawns, right? Because the pawns are like landmines. If you walk into the diagonal, right? Can't walk there. It's like a landmine because it's weaker, right? It wants to take you. Whereas this one's like, they're more valuable, so they don't necessarily want to take you, but they go beyond that too. So they're strong. They're stronger and weaker in ways than the pawns. But like I said, they can serve almost prophylactically as you push the G pawn. It's almost like you have a second G pawn behind it, like we have the double G pawns and one stays back. So the bishop can try to substitute in a way using the diagonal powers. Okay, there you go. It comes back. Doesn't want to have to move the rook off. Well, interestingly, he's also trying to trade off the good bishop. Now that's certainly a good bishop. That's not contained at all, right? That's the one, actually, that's the one piece other than maybe the rook that really has mobility. So it's like, okay, I can trade it. Now the knight starts coming into the game. Oh, there you go, man. Didn't get to h4 yet, but oh, that's one of the big ideas too. It's like, okay, you want to trade it off. Well, now I get my queen activated. Well, we're keeping an eye on that square, but see, we're aware of that. We're aware of our opponent's prospect. Do we move our rook? Yes, we do. Because we're aware of this idea of, you know, him taking and unleashing. Well, suddenly that bishop becomes very powerful. Goes from a bad bishop to good. Maybe white would even sack the d pawn, let it take just to open up the bishop and get into like d5 or the knight coming in. So of course we're aware of it. Like, hey, you know, I'm stopping you from doing some dangerous things, but I happen to want my rook there. And now he's fully mobilized. Beautiful, right? Beautiful mobilization, coordination. So yeah, actually, even though I wanted to show you the end, the whole thing is pretty instructive, isn't it? So far. Very, very nice play, right?
It's very nice because he really is restricting everybody on the back rank. You know, everybody, everybody's pretty much restricted.
Except for the knight, maybe. But even the knight, but he's even keeping a knight on the e6. The knight got out. He can kick it later, but like he knows the knight can't do that much. Right?
No, not right.
I mean, he can't stop everything, but well, ideally he'd like to. In the future, he does. Okay, so he wants a7. We stop a7 from being taken. And also, look at that. We're also, again, when I first looked at it, I didn't realize how much there was. Because look, he also happens to be restricting rook e1. We probably don't. I mean, generally speaking, if all else being equal, it's pretty good to get 2 rooks for a queen, especially if you have those open lines. Like if you give up an exchange sometimes, you know, if you give up an exchange, but the knight's better and your rook doesn't get it, that's one thing. But your rooks do clearly get to come in, and you're actually gaining a point, theoretically. Depends on the position. But here you certainly would feel the power of those rooks coming in. So you're pretty much from all intents and purposes, you're preventing rook e1 right now. Okay, so he takes. Well then, it's interesting. White is initiating trades. I think this says white is feeling the squeeze. But as he trades more and more, he's just left with a bad bishop. It's being accentuated in a way. I mean, I'm sure black didn't want to trade everything off, but hey, now in the wake of those weaknesses, now the queen activates with a check, tempo. And then, oh, there you go. There's that restriction. He's tempting white to come and give him a pawn. He's like, okay, if you want to bring out your bishop, you got to pay a price. Don't take with the rook maybe, because then bishop d5. Actually, interestingly, you can maybe get away with it because it's like, there's a bishop check. But yeah, either way, it looks fine. Yeah, you might actually like to do that. But bishop here is probably fine too. So anyway, but he would win a pawn. So he's still containing that knight. And now now that he's contained it, he said, okay, let's get you. I keep on saying, okay, let's get you out of there. Bishop d3. Takes. So he's really beginning this. You're seeing how this restriction method is kind of coming to a head here, right? It keeps accumulating, right? I mean, look at the knight. The queen chose to sort of restrict herself. Now the rook's. Oh, we took with check. Now the rook's hanging too. But look at the queen. She sort of self-restricted herself. Right? She's sort of self-restricted by coming over here and doing nothing. Sort of I don't know who Harper. I mean, clearly Harper is a much weaker player. So sometimes they help you a little bit.
Well, let's see if he's going to leave that rook hanging.
No, he's not that bad. He's still a good player, but he's weaker than. I don't actually know who this person. We'll look him up real quick. But you could just see the restrictions really beginning, and it's going to keep increasing. So of course the rook probably moves. But you see this, look, I mean, he's very nervous. I mean, so the knight can't go anywhere. The bishop, yeah, I mean, really everything's getting restricted. So the rook can't challenge. Keep in mind the bishop stops the challenge of the F file. So the 2 open files are in black. So it's like he's not letting white's pieces activate. And a lot of that is because his pieces are already so active. De facto, they're restricting white's pieces. So the bishop happens to stop rook F1 from challenging the file. Can't even go bishop F1 because there's 2 on it. But it's also just nice because it's super active. So yeah, we're seeing every piece out of play now, right? And we're seeing other than the knight, see, the knight's actually serving some defensive purposes. Well, it was covering e6 also, right? But it can come out too. But we have 3 super active pieces. Our king is nice and safe. His king seems safe, but he's getting entombed, right? Halloween open. Oh, there you go. There's the there's the pun. Halloween open. He's entombed on Halloween. That's interesting. He didn't do the Halloween gambit, though. That's another thing. Yeah, they have good puns. I think people vote on them. Okay, queen d7. So now he chooses to take. Now that's an interesting moment because remember how bad the bishop was. He's making the decision. See, the other one's kind of white initiated the trades for the most part. Now black initiates a trade. Well, why do you think he'd want to trade off that, quote, bad bishop? There are limitations. Sometimes you're okay with a bad bishop yourself, and sometimes you don't want your opponent to have a, quote, bad. It's a very bad bishop. Purely serves defensive ends. Remember I talked about with the fianchetto, though. It's trying to defend the king. So why do you think he would trade off white's bishop there?
He's ready to attack.
And why does that, just to belabor the point, I guess, but why does that help him attack by getting rid of the bishop? Because usually you think, well, I add forces, I attack. In this case, you decrease forces. Goes both ways. This is Alpha Zero game like that, where it just trades everything. It's down a piece, as the rook and the queen are left and they win. Was that?
King doesn't have anywhere to go, so the rook has to take, but then you come down to a check and it just releases the back rank.
And that's right. And that's where you're seeing the awkwardness because he doesn't have h3 in there. The knight's on h3 where it doesn't want to be. Utterly, completely restricted. It's almost like a de facto corralled, actually. And we have a bishop. Classic, you guys seen a classic example where, let's say the knight were here, and it's just a rook against, a knight against a bishop, and the bishop corrals the knight. It's de facto corralled right now because the queen is keeping it at bay, and the pawn is defended, and the pawn covers f4, very important, right? So it doesn't get to come back. And the queen just just self-imposed. Was trying to take, I don't even know why she went to b5, but oh no, she got taken. Well, maybe it was that, if you go back briefly. When
it was trying to take a6, yeah.
Yeah, not only that though, I think that she didn't want it. She wanted to come here because if the pawn takes, then d5 becomes weaker. I think they were nervous about, it wasn't going to happen yet, but especially like, let's say you kick the knight, trade the bishop off, it actually could become a reality because the knight would be, could become a reality there. No, the knight would be gone, but they may, at least it will be very brittle. So anyway, but now that just really nice play, right? So you simultaneously increase the power of your pieces while stopping them. So restriction or this is more restriction. So restriction doesn't have to mean you're being passive. You're simultaneously, as we saw, like moves like taking the files. So you simultaneously, well, you take the files for yourself, and in doing so, you take away from your opponent. Whereas a move like g5 is more deliberately, just intended solely to restrict the knight. So by trading it off, though, we talked about the protective element of the bishop. So now we've removed that, and as you said, Alejandro. So and inherently, when you fianchetto, you're weakening the light squares on this side. You're weakening dark squares for black. So those weaknesses are covered by the bishop. So you guys know, like, you've seen when the bishop comes into h3 or h6, like in a dragon, white often likes to go bishop h6 behind with the queen backing it up. Trade it off, then you start feeling the weaknesses, right? You guys know what I'm talking about? Where they deliberately just come in like h3, just trade it off. So same thing, but different angle. You guys know what I'm talking about? Probably seen that in the dragon. You just trade off the bishop. So now we're seeing, okay, the queen finally activates. But again, all she's got, you see the board is almost split in half here. Interestingly enough, that g-pawn's kind of in the way. She can't tuck back. So she can probably win the pawn if she wants. She can win either one of those. I don't think it matters anymore so there you go. Now there more restriction. Now the knight can't take because they get there. Alejandro, now you're seeing the decisive effect because the knight can't tuck back. Well, if the knight tucks back, they get smothered. And then we're looking at that's where we're looking at the zugzwang. So zugzwang is like ultimate restriction. You take away any good move. In a zugzwang, you have to make a bad move. You take away every good move. Across elimination, basically. So very uncomfortable. And you can pin that when everyone, okay, look at this. h6. So possibly kind of a waiting move, even see what he does, make him run out of good moves. And also, yeah, make sure you don't have to worry about that, I guess. We'll see. Maybe anticipating this move. Okay. Now he's threatening mate. Queen goes back. Finally, she finds a home. And there you go. There's the tomb. So now it's really really reached a climax in terms of activating all your forces, and we kept restricting, and now we have the reached the climax of restriction. All he's got now, yeah, he actually has no knight moves because we would win the knight. We wouldn't take with the queen. Hypothetically, okay, what do we do here? So hypothetically, we were to go here, you would not take with the queen because then you would actually take your rook because you'd break the pin. You'd take with the rook. Then it's game over. You're up a knight and you're coming in, right? And again, you're going to make him run out of moves. The queen's in the way. If the queen goes back, you win the queen. So the queen can't even get out. So pretty nice, right? There's another one, like we said, Lynn, with the V is for victory game. Let me move that over a little bit. With the V is for victory game, you very memorable, right? You guys will probably have some image of this in your mind. At least the notion. At least you have that. You'll probably
in this case, it kind of looked like an upside down V.
a little bit, yeah.
I mean, the V can come, it could be a different letter, but the squeeze is like a, what do you call that snake?
Boa?
Like the boa constrictor, the one that constricts you. Yeah.
And if we had a knight in there, it would be made already.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can see that he's run out of moves. So the king, well, that's an example where someone says, hey, isn't it bad to castle? Like beginners might say, isn't it bad to castle because my king's in the corner? Well, most of the time it's good because, you know, the first thing that opens up is usually the center. So if the center, unless the center looks like it's really not going to open, like I said, unless there's like no way you're going to get back rank mated, it might be useful not to play h6, particularly if h6, creates like a hook pawn to be attacked by bayonet. So you don't do it all the time. But we also, we can be exploited in the corner sometimes. But he certainly came through the center to get there. So the running out of moves. The last move. Now we don't give him the idea of going here. I mean, either way, he can't. It's indefensible at this point. Oh, look at that. There's his b6 move. Because if he were to take back with his d pawn, he let the pawn push. So once he takes back with the b pawn, all he has is a pawn moves. Okay, so b4. Now everything's pinned. He's completely petrified there. Now just watch out for stale. Well, actually, that's interesting because he wants to stalemate now. Right? You'd have to. You can't lock everything up. It's actually. No, never mind. No, my bad. Because he does have. Well, it's almost stalemate. It's like those scenarios where it's almost stalemate. You have the king in a stalemate position, but they have to start giving away their pawns, and you push and get a new queen and mate them, or a rook and mate them. So it's almost stalemate once you. But no, it would not be because you would take the queen and then mate them on g2. So yeah, that's what we want them to do. Make them give away their queen. See what he's doing? Wait. Game over. So he's letting them run out of moves. Take. And then the queen has to give herself up. And then, yeah, they still have a move. Kind of shuffle out of there. Like that shuffle puzzle thing. So pretty nice, isn't it? So a very dramatic example of restriction that you can keep in your mind. Well, first of all, the simultaneous activity of your pieces, which actually, again, it shows you don't just need to make defensive moves to be prophylactic or restrictive. In this case, though, can we say there's prophylaxis specifically? Maybe b6. That's more of a prophylactic move because you're not really restricting anything, but it's more like you kind of know. Again, that's a very subtle example. But look, it ended up being that you didn't want to take with your d pawn, and you fortified some. Again, here it didn't matter. Now Fischer-Spassky round 5. That was very direct. That was more defensive almost. It didn't have to happen, but it made it so you were ready to directly take it, as well as the famous Fischer, the F5 game against Korchnoi, where he plays C5. Well, C5 was C5 was restrictive, kind of, yeah, more restrictive. Prophylactic is like if they do something dangerous almost, you know what I mean? It wasn't dangerous to push C5, but it's part of the plan, which could become, so you see some overlap there. But B6 was purely a little more prophylactic. Just make it so whatever they do is going to have less impact and not become dangerous. Okay, what else? Then now we have the activity element. That's just more pure defense. I wouldn't say that's restriction or something. Okay, we trade, check. Then we have that would be restrictive. activity to simultaneously, like bishop D. Well, bishop D3 allows makes it so he can't trade rooks. Keeps on trying to trade off. Can't do that. Trade off too. That's exploitative kind of thing, to exploit the light squares. And that might be considered a little prophylactic. You're making sure that never gets taken after like a check or something, because that might. And also with h4, see, just like with b4, you take back with the pawn. He's already seeing, hey, you have h4. I'm already ready to take back with my pawn. So he's ahead of the game. He's way ahead of his opponent, right? He sees there. Look, think about it. There's only so much that White can do here, right? I mean, he can't do anything with all he's got is a few pawn moves and queen moves. So it's pretty easy to kind of count the prospects that White has, right? It's not impossible at all. I mean, not like mathematically difficult at all to do that. I mean, in terms of mathematics, you can be like, oh, we could just count the squares and be like, based on that, how many more prospects do we have? Look at how many squares White has access to, right? Almost just a few pawn moves, just a few squares. But yeah, now he's totally petrified, spellbound, and then he resigns. But yeah, you can go here. You'll do the same thing, and then the queen has to fall on the sword, right? What do you guys think about the game? Any thoughts? Any final thoughts about this before I show you the another? Yes. Well, the two Capablanca games to think of. Well, again, the most dramatic example is the V for Victory, but really the heavy artillery game. Yeah. I think chess.com is just a great way to find games because they have it all right there for you, and they come up with puns, and the puns probably is another way to help you remember, right? The image of the game in your mind. Or a couple of my students or that I've worked with have aphantasia, so they might not. For example, my student, he might not remember this exactly, but he knows that he can think of it logically. Oh, I remember there was a knight, a queen, and a rook. So it'd be more like he's using his he's using his words to describe, right? Yeah, or it's like if you're or the more dramatic example is if you're blind, then obviously your hearing is going to be heightened, right? You're going to obviously emphasize that. So since he's well, it would be sort of like image in your head blind in a way, right? That restriction. So he would think more in that sense, but he knows that things are surrounded. His king is utterly surrounded by his own pieces. It's like the same thing as a smothered mate. The smothered mate would be the knight. If you had a knight handy, then the knight, he probably thought about it. He's like, can I bring the knight in? But he didn't need to. Didn't need to happen. He probably could have maneuvered to try to get knight check in. Anyway, yeah. Do you guys have any final thoughts about that game?
Well, I think that's why he left the knight down there all this time, because I was wondering too why he didn't bring the knight into play, because it could have made the smothered mate or the tomb easier.
Yeah.
But he had a different idea in mind, such as the G4 pawn.
I think it's more unique, yeah, because we've all seen a smothered mate, but again, so we have the restriction in general, then we have the acme of restriction entombed on Halloween, right? I mean, how appropriate, right? So we entombed, you got the mummy in there or whatever, and then he has the unique concept in mind that's going to make it, well, an immortal game, the immortal tomb game, an immortal game in terms of restriction. So he didn't have to sack anything. He just completely outplayed his opponent.
And David, you could also look at the knight sitting at G7 as a prophylactic move that didn't move.
Yeah, like a bishop, like a fianchetto knight. It's like a bishop, but that took away. But that's exactly, that would be kind of similar to like H6, not to avoid mate, but to avoid unnecessary queen check. Same with H6, check or checks that might take G5. That may not have been in the cards, but that's the thing about prophylaxis. That's the difference. See, again, they overlap a lot, but with prophylaxis, it really may not come to pass, but it's just, you insert it, right? It's just a little insertion. H6 are having your knight there. Whereas restriction, again, it's just more specific. It's specifically
generally
your opponent's piece activity and stopping it. Was that?
No, I would say generally you don't see the knight sitting at G7 all that time. So it to me, it looked like, it was a prophylactic move for in the future, which means I may have to use it and I may not have to use it,
Yeah. And it all began with, well, interestingly, just sort of, it sort of like followed the flow of the game. Now, I'm a little baffled as to why he wouldn't have played F5 now. I guess maybe it was sort of prophylactic in that, hey, I don't want to get taken by the bishop and ruin. But funny enough, again, a Fischer game, round 3. In round 3 of the Fischer-Spassky, I don't know if I've shown you guys that. It's a little less, it's much less famous, but it's a unique idea because he voluntarily messes up his king side. He gets the bishop pair in doing so because it's the same thing. The bishop takes the knight. Oops. Oh wait, did I have it there? Yeah. Oh no, it wasn't there yet. It was there later. But then yeah, and then the pawn ends up pushing and like creating a wedge and things like that. And then he's actually able to trade it off and he undoubles it and it goes to g4. So anyway, but yeah, it's interesting that he didn't choose. He chose to come back and then go to E8. A little weird. Yeah, it's a little unexpected. You know what? It's kind of like maybe I'm thinking it's in the spirit of making his opponent run out of moves. But it's funny, my opponent did that to me last night, but it didn't work. Because as he was doing the knight, I thought he was going to play a break. It had its drawbacks, so he didn't want to do it, but it seemed active. But then he shuffles the knight over to do the break, and he told me after the game, it's like I was about to do. It's a very interesting guy, actually. He's from Ethiopia, and he actually built the men's and women's team. I didn't know about that until I spoke with him. He's like very modest about it. So FIDE didn't, well, they were supposed to be working with Spain for which tournament was it? It was like she said 04 Olympiad, and Spain didn't give them visas. And FIDE was supposed to be working with Spain to make it happen. He got really mad about it, and he advocated, he went to FIDE and spoke about it. And then do you remember Daim Shabazz? He's, I think, like a business professor at I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's University of Florida, somewhere in Florida. I think it's, I think it's the Cable Gore, what do you call it? Coral Gables, whatever it is. I think it's that one. But yeah, so he's very much an advocate for Black players in the chess community internationally, like the Black diaspora, African diaspora. And so yeah, like for example, I remember we spoke about Simutawe, Amon Simutawe, when we covered his so that was, and I shared it with Daim, or I think I added him or whatever. I mentioned him or whatever. So he saw it because that was in reference to I was able to utilize the work that he did about Amutawe, who was the first GM from sub-Saharan Africa, right? And so yeah, he helped advocate for the Ethiopian team, and I think the second one was when he built the men's and the women, or overall and the women's teams, like 04, and then a few years later. And it was really interesting. So I played this guy I played last night, Balacho. He was part of that effort. And it's funny because he told me, oh, I'm from this area in Ethiopia. I'm like, oh yeah, because I went there too. And I'm like, oh, I know. I remember it went up the hill. It's called Ntoto. When you pass the American embassy, you keep going up a hill, and this beautiful view of Addis Ababa. And there's like some crowns up there and stuff of some of the old king. Aksum, which is now like the area where the civil war has been, that has a beautiful, like really beautiful area with the big obelisks, and they have all the crowns and stuff. Anyway, but yeah, it's funny because I went there. And then he's like, oh, I'm like, oh, I actually passed that area. It's like, I used to play in the soccer field up there and stuff. It was pretty cool. But anyway, so that's why I played last night. And in the game, though, he shuffled his knight. He was about to do the break. He didn't do it. And so when he shuffled, then essentially what that did, though, is it gave me time to be able to carry out my plan. So in other words, no, it was interesting. But what he was doing, though, what I'm getting at, though, is if this is what this guy's doing here, Zook, or rather Harper, the idea was I was getting low on the clock. So he wanted to see if I'd overextend myself. So it's very understandable what he did, but it gave me time to actually not, in that case, I did not overextend myself. So it could have gone wrong, but fortunately I didn't do that. I didn't do what he was hoping for in that case. But yeah, so what I'm thinking, see, by going back, it's like in the end of the game when he waited for white to run out of pawn moves. Does that make sense? So he's like, let me see if you're going to keep moving your pawns. And ultimately he did. He played f4, which didn't really help white's cause. Does that make sense? I know there's a lot there, but you see what I mean there? I mean, and again, I'm speculating, but you can see that he's kind of like, but again, why? I'm just trying to figure out why would he go back? He's kind of seeing what white's going to do, right? But then ultimately, and again, to tie it all together, Lynn, it was the flow of the game. I was trying to figure out why he did that. Again, when you study GM games, trying to figure out why would they do this, and you could do it yourself. But then he created the knight fianchetto as I've seen that the first time I saw it was an Anand game. So the fianchetto, naturally, Lynn, he's already coming in. So it's like, hey, but he voluntarily did that by going back and then taking with the knight. And I mean, the knight also prophylactically, it did cover e6. And again, prophylactically, he moved the rook out of the way. And again, he wanted to do that anyway. So it's like, that's some of the strongest chess moves are if you can defend and attack simultaneously, and all the more power to you, right? You're just doing more at once. Does that make sense, guys?
Yes.
There's a lot of instructive elements there, right?
Yes.
So yeah, but this is universal. Okay. And then there you go, little prophylaxis. And that's just pure, that's restriction, just pure restriction to a very aggressive end. Right, I mean, usually, I mean, generally speaking, if Zugzwang is the height of restriction. You've restricted them so much that they can't make any good moves. This is a beautiful example. So we get to see a lot of cool things in this game. Oh, they call it the Korchnoi attack. Interesting. So now the second one, it just happens to be, now I don't know about Karpov's Immortal, Mr. Freeze Bronstein. Now you guys, I'm not sure if we've covered him. We should cover him. One of the best in the world. And he argued that people say that it was arranged so that I think it was against Botvinnik. I think they said like it was arranged, kind of like Fischer would say so that Bronstein wouldn't win. That's some people argue that anyway, so it's interesting to look into that. I mean, I think the historical record is just not clear, but he was he was like second. He was among the best ever. Zugi style, I don't know, constricting the enemy bishop, interesting, and then restricting the entire queen side. Alekhine Nimzovich. So we see Nimzovich losing here. Well, Nimzovich was better as an author. He was never, I don't know what his rank was, but you see him getting beaten a lot. So basically, he was a great author, and he would show like beautifully instructive games against players who weren't at the top. Hold on a second. Sorry, I'm needed for 1 second, but let me open the next one. The Immortal, where is this one? Oh, heavy artillery. Okay, this is the cap. I'll be right there. I'm needed for not sure what. But let me just for a second, I'll just show you guys the position. You could think about it first. So while I'm there. Yeah, actually, first thing here. Why do you think he played G6 in this position? Anticipating. What? Think about that. Be right there. All right, sorry about that. Got an issue with a friend nearby. Did you guys discuss? Do you guys
Oh
have
no,
any?
we're all on mute.
Oh, we did.
Oh, did you guys talk about it at all?
No.
No.
Oh, you were thinking about it?
Yeah.
Sorry, there's a little bully in the neighborhood, unfortunately. Yeah, I have to deal with him. But yeah. So what do you guys think?
I'm clueless. Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty deep. It's a deep move. But again, it's gonna be related to another, it's gonna be actually a series of, now this would be, let's see, again, prophylactic versus, it's very, as you see, it's very similar. We're restricting his plans, right? But this is more this is, I would say, this is just happens to be a little more. The other one was like, okay, C5 is like not an immediate danger. It's just that that's his general plan. In this case, what do you guys think the break is, specifically pertaining to the break? What do you guys think the break is that white would be going for? If you had white here, imagine. So a lot of this is really, again, thinking for our opponent as much as ourselves. What would you guys do if you had white? Again, if you're thinking about a break. Because the thing is that white, okay, let's go back briefly. So I just showed you real quick. So it's funny because I've actually had this or something similar in multiple games where I play bishop f5. Very nice. I like it. You have bishop outside. I'm happy with my opponent pushes. You can win a lot of games like this because you're trying to make white overextend and you get rid of the bad bishop. And now you have a good bishop. See? So black would have, for black, see? That bishop, no, you might say, oh, where's it going to go? Look, even on e7, it has scope. Whereas white has a little, again, it's not like, you can't view it like completely all or nothing like in an orthodox manner. But in general, it has less scope, right? It only has one diagonal. It may not do anything on it. Does that make sense? The black bishop it's the bishop that's not going to be restricted by its own pawns. That's the definition of the bad bishop. It's restricted by its own pawns. If it's restricted by its opponent's pawns, it still could look at them and strike at them, maybe, you know what I mean? But its own pawns, like remember the one on G2 last game that was biting on granite, its own pawn on D5, right? So it's all connected. See the same themes there. So he's attacking F2, has to defend F2 by castling. So very natural. Now he allows the bishop to be taken, interestingly. But the more, see again, just remember, it's very similar to, there are a lot of similarities to the game we just saw. Remember the pieces were being traded down and it just benefited Zook or Zuck. It benefited them because all the pieces were better. It's like I said about Capablanca. His opponents would try to trade down, but it didn't matter because it's kind of like if you have a pawn up, an advantage in that sense, and they trade down, well, your advantage is accentuated, right? It becomes concentrated and the more you trade down, right? Cream rises to the top, right? You're just left with the cream. The good stuff is there. So you go back. Now look at that. See? Look at the two knights. It's really doing a nice job, isn't it? Now he actually doesn't even take yet. He's like, why do I want your bishop? Again, well, now that you played f4, all he's got is this diagonal. What is it doing, right? Unless it's able to shift, it's not going to do that right now, is it? See? You guys with me so far? Superior pieces.
Yes.
Based on the structure. So you're seeing this intimate link between piece, activity, and structure. And I think we did. Oh, Leia, is she? Wait, who had to leave? Did she have, wait. Who had to leave? Oh, Matt.
Just say he'll be right
I didn't hear
back.
Matt. I don't know. Sometimes he has a bad connection. I didn't hear him. What's that?
Still here.
Matt's still here. Yeah, you're still here.
Alejandro
No, I
said he
know you have
would
to
be
leave.
right back.
You're still here. What's that?
Alejandro said he would be right back.
Okay, so he's still in the meeting. Yeah, it looks like Matt left. So we have at least he was here for the first game. Leia, which one? And then here we are. So again, connection between pawn structure and piece activity and which pieces. Well, it's a pretty locked up game. Not totally locked up, like that would be even more locked up, but pretty locked up. So yeah, it's not a good bishop. So we're going to take it. We're going to show the power of our knights, right? So deliberately saying, it's like we would probably voluntarily, I mean, that is our good bishop, especially if it were the bad bishop, we would be very happy to trade off our light squared for that. But we did trade off our light square bishop for the good bishop, and we traded off, well, we went to a knight, late middle game with two minor pieces each with the better knights. And Leia, I see you, what's the game you're mentioning? Then I'll look at that next. What is it?
It was on the list. I'll look it up later on.
And because of the center square mate, is that like he's totally restrained?
I'm not sure. I'll have
Just
to
a cool
go
king,
back.
a cool king hunt.
It's just something I want to look at, given how it's a lot harder to mate in like the total center because of all of the theoretical space.
Well, and if you break it down, you know, everything, if you, you know, completely distill it, you know, a pure checkmate is restriction. You're restricting the king. So the king has 8 potential squares it can move to. Well, if it's against the side, it has 5, I think. And if it's in the corner, it would have 3. So it's already inherently restricted by the board, right? The prospects that the board offers geometrically. And so you need to restrict the king, and then you restrict it. It's kind of like a stalemate. Well, you want to stalemate. Stalemate is restricted, but the good thing about checkmate is he's in check simultaneously, so you win instead of draw. But yeah, so that's a fundamental. So if you're gonna make the king in the center, actually, it's funny you mentioned that because there's a really beautiful, again, a Capablanca game. Who is he beat? Wait, is that Alec? No, it's Bulguyabov. Capablanca, Bulguyabov, the one that Alekine just beat up on multiple times in their matches. Do you guys know about that? If you reckon, I think it's Bulguyabov. They call it the Bogo Indian because the name's going to the Bogo Indians when there's a check instead of the pin, and that's named after him. It sounds like. So anyway, that's a nice one, and then you mentioned that one. We could look at a few of them. We'll see. So then we're bringing it to the Tomb game. It showed restriction in general, but the main aspect is obviously the most. I was even going to show you the red. I was going to flip through. I'm like, oh, that's really instructive. This whole game is instructive. Just the mastery of pawn structure. So again, like if you're not sure, you're like, oh, I don't know about, you know, how to squeeze my opponent too much. Look at Capablanca games. There we go again, Lynn. You're going to see it. Not quite as dramatic, but pretty dramatic. Okay, interestingly, he takes. And now he's like, well, look, he's not going to waste his time because he's going to complete his restriction while he can before it's too late. So well, think about it too. That bishop is like, just because it's a bad bishop doesn't mean it's going to be bad forever. You can open the position for the bishops, but you can't close them again for the knights because the knights usually, well, they like closed positions, but the most important, the knights want outposts, right? But the closed position allows them to jump over pawns and this and that, right? And the bishops are restricted usually. But remember, that bishop could become good later. But the main idea is to gain time to be able to insert h5. This is, again, Silman covers this. So again, I always reference it because there's just, you know, I mean, Silman's so instructive and so is Capablanca. So you can't go wrong. But Silman covers this idea. I think it's not Capablanca. It's another. I think he gives a sample, maybe from a real game. I forget who it is, but I'm pretty sure it's a real game and there's a sample that he gives, an example here. So why is h5 such a good move? What if okay. Well, it's very obvious if the pawn takes why it's good. Well, what's important? What would you actually take back with? What's more aggressive? Both are probably possible. Very natural recapture of youth what?
Rook, of course, the rook.
Yes, definitely. Well, there are 2 benefits here. One is that you can castle queenside. I mean, sometimes you can move the king. Given that the rook's on the d file, I wouldn't do that. Actually, you might have king e7, but no, certainly I would go queenside and play king b8 if I need to. The king is pretty okay on the queen side in this case, right? There's no, because white's activity is more in the center. So you double up the rooks and go after the h pawn. Not to mention, this is what I'm getting at. Remember, it's the same concept. Remember the f5 move? If he takes with the pawn, f5 is more possible. But there's also he's kind of inhibiting him based on this pressure on e5. So if he does, I mean, but look, he doesn't mean he won't do it. Even now, he's going to try to play f5. You know that's his main play. You know, matchstick is not in the middle, but you know that's the way. Like, how else is he going to do anything, right? So here you're also you're looking at with the rook and your pawn by staying on g6. You see, we're really let me use that. We are really just latching on here to this square. Very important square. And then we're keeping an eye on these pawns and we're targeting the h pawn. That's pretty much what's going on there, right? Those are the vital squares / pawns. Well, h2 is h2 is a target. We'll double up. And we're gonna come down here. Right? Gonna castle queenside, bring the rook over here. Restrain this. Hey, you never know. We might have g5 in some cases to blast open this. But positionally, to remove the backer of that pawn to what's the word? Unroot. What's that word I'm looking for? Unroot? Is that the word?
Undermine.
Undermine. Yeah, I'm looking for that root word. Is it unroot? I feel like it's different now. But you're removing the root, undermining it, yes, and undermining it. Taking it out from kicking it off its feet, right? So that given that whatever you want to call it, that's the base. So by root, it's a very small pawn chain, right? Same if it's here, you're going to attack it down here, but it's broken up already. So we're just going to smash it. But if nothing else, we're restraining them and we're going to put that heat on the H pawn. So that's all we need to do. We can have a great game just doing that. Now, don't forget, based on the pawn structure, we do have the C file. Look at that. That's what, keep that in mind. That's nice, right? You can also push. So Capablanca does everything. These are all your prospects with black. Those are the main, right now anyway. There's not much else, right? There's a lot there, right? And again, well, a lot of prophylactic thinking is doing the same thing for your opponent. That's really a big part of it. So again, it's knowing, like Dworsky talked about, it's knowing your opponent's resources. So knowing that the main thing here prophylactically would be, hey, my opponent wants F5. And again, we're going to stop it. And again, we're seeing that again with the rook takes, but G6 certainly is the main concept. And then now how does H5 enhance that? Let's going back to the main idea. It's all connected. Wait, what was I going to do again? Oh, you have to go back here. Wait a second. Where did it go? Oh, there it is. So going back to get back to the mouse again. So going back to, I have to that's what it is. You have to get rid of this sideline. So going back to H5, he's provoking G5 or takes. But the thing is, sometimes what happens is there's a rook on the corner and you simply can't take back because there's a pin when the rook's still on H1, So you can't take back there. In this case, he can, but he probably doesn't want to because now you're not taking anything, but you might mate him or at least create some big threats. Because again, actually you can play rook H4 with tempo. No, then he has a tempo back. No, you would do it soon enough, but you'd probably castle and then you double, like ideally with rook H4. Then if the queen attacks, you double and you come down H1 ideally. And you have the G5 hit. Yeah, even that alone is going to be just like, and if you castle, you might even have F6 hit. We often do that in the French. You watch out for this. Because at Dakar Khan, we don't have the bishop protecting, but we might sack it. Who knows? But I think the G5 idea is very nice. Because like I said, this is very brittle. So we have this kind of a preventive effect just by keeping our eye on E5. He really doesn't want to, it's very hard for him to play F5. Now, another preventive thing is, well, we castle, but in doing so, we're getting away from that action. Because again, white can do it even if he's on G5. And that's what he looks, it's brilliant. And that's what he looks out for. It's complete, again, this is really, Capablanca just was a master of restriction, right? So you got to study this. You'll gain so much from it. And hopefully, with the explanations as well, than the questions that you have, as opposed to just watching a video. But yeah, just study the games or reading a book. But the more you study, the better. So anyway, he didn't do that. But yeah, so he didn't allow that. That would have been pretty good, right? So it doesn't allow this opening on the H file, so he closes it. But now he castles kingside. Again, he could have gone queenside, but keep in mind, like, white can still do stuff here. Can play C4, open the file, or knight could come in. And what if his knight gets into B5 and D6? It's okay. But now that we're both going to go on the queen side, a king side rather. Now, the only way that white opens it is F5. So we do have to be ready for that. Because remember, that is a move. Because, he'll open things, right? But he'll probably lose. I mean, he'll lose stuff too. So he has to be very cautious. But look, the main idea though is now that he's pretty much made, he's very, for all intents and purposes, well, F5 is very hard to achieve. Now it makes a lot of sense to castle. See? But it did not make sense at all. Now you're going to get H4, H5, F5, rook swing, and mate. Mating ideas F5, Queen H6. So many ways to mate. But now you see, based on a little tweak in the pawn structure from H5, that's it. See the difference? What you're doing is you're grabbing the light squares where he doesn't have that bishop anymore. You're forcing. Now, it would have been even nicer if we had that bishop blocked by his own pawns. Now it's even worse, right? But it doesn't matter. Point is that it's still very good for us. And we would argue that white's position is going to be over. That's what we're going to try and prove, that it's overextended. Look at the F pawn. That's the base of these pawn chains. If you take out the F pawn, everything collapses, which is exactly what he's going to find a way to do. So you guys understand, very important element here of G6 making it harder to play f5. But after g4, see, and can't waste any time because he's ready to go there soon, even with a pawn sack. Because black's not castled, he might sack. And if we need to, we go queen side. But since he locked it up, we go king side. Does that make sense how we orchestrated that? Very, very instructive moment, but what he did. Also keep in mind, a lot of times they'll go h4, and then that's when your knight will go on f5. And you'll see there's the example that Silman gives, the knight's on f5, he goes h4, and the knight's already there. And so since he looks here, the bishop has to stay there. The king can't even go to g3. So the rook stays there, rather, and it keeps an eye on that, because you don't want to lose that, come back, h-pawn, pass pawn, protected pass pawn. So does that make sense? Any questions about that? It was a really important moment there. You guys got it? The idea there of, don't be shy, guys.
Yeah.
But the idea of, you know, very important concept. So again, it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing. Because if he takes it, opens up. If he pushes, well, the thing is, again, by castling, you've just well, so again, restriction is not letting his pieces do things, which he's doing. And then prophylaxis is making it, for example, again, the classic example is that you get to have a safe king, like h3. In this case, it's just a different way of doing it. But he knows that his king is not going to be safe at all if white gets those breaks in. And again, he makes it incredibly difficult. He's increasing the price substantially. It's going to be a huge price to pay. And if you play f5, he just takes with the pawn. Oh, then he might get the pawn. So you have to watch out for it. Let's see what he does. Actually, so yeah, he could have tried it. But think about it. Boom. Now he doesn't want that. Now he's lost a pawn and he has to trade queens. If he moves, okay, you want to move again? Oh, then you take this one. Okay, what you gonna? I mean, it's just bad. It's all around bad, right? You go here. Where are you gonna go? Here. We still take. You want to get this one? Okay, you got to trade queens and you're down a pawn. Right? Just come out and blocks up a pawn. Everything's safe. So no matter what, it's good for black. Damned if you do, damned if you don't for white here. So the way he did by pushing, and then he can't do anything. So again, but you have to be aware of f5, right? Alpha Zero, if you remember Alpha Zero Stockfish game in the French where the bishop, you guys, who remembers that game? Some of you have seen it. I mean,
I think so.
Who remembers the game where the bishop is entombed itself on d7? And then he's down, actually, Alpha Zero is down a piece, and yet it still breaks through with the pawn stack on f5. Do you guys remember that game at all? It's a memorable moment where
I know we went through it. I don't know if I totally remember it.
But there's a break. What happened in that game was the queen actually, how did it make it happen? I think it took back.
Bye, Leah.
See you, Leah. Oh, we didn't. We'll show her that. Maybe that'll fit in with. Actually, that's a great. That's for next time. We can talk about mating nets and king hunts and fun stuff like that, like how you mate the king in the center. It's good to know because that's how we'll sort of the general category of exploiting the centralized king, right? That's a very good one because you want to know how to do that. You want to feel confident that if they're not castled, you can just throw everything in the kitchen sink at them. You're sacrificing things, but you want to make sure it pays off. You want to know when it's going to work because you can win a lot of games like that against, you guys play a lot of people probably, especially if they're not like, even masters will do it sometimes. They think they get away with it. But especially if they're like under 2000, like under 1500, like club level players, they will not castle many times and you'll catch them that way. So you can win a lot of games. Anyway, now that's not restricting. That's just punishing. That's punishing the uncast. Now you would want to actually, no, you'd want to restrain them from castling, but a lot of times they will voluntarily just not castle. Okay. If I can stop you, I will, but maybe you stop yourself. Maybe you voluntarily just don't do it because you're busy with other things. Okay. So we lock it down, we castle. But now a little more prophylaxis here. Okay. First we make a good move. Well, actually look at that restriction. Can't move the knight. Queen's hanging, right? Stopping that for now. Oh, he happens to be looking simultaneously attacking. Well, I mean, it's a powerful diagonal. He's X-raying, right? She's X-raying. She's looking at B2, free pawn. So guards, pure defensive. Look at that. He's like, look where my play is. It's the only line to use for black, right? Half open file. But look how he adjusts a little bit. Okay, rook C7. Why not? Let's get the knight in there. Probably C4. Come after the queen, hop around. Look at this, another prophylactic move. So it doesn't do anything, right? It's not going anywhere with that. But what he's doing is he's saying, look, I see you want to play, again, I see you want to play F5. I don't want to, ideally I want to take, you don't want to have to do that because then you're giving him more, he's going to come take your H pawn. You don't need that, right? But then he's going to play G6 and all that. Well, then he has an attack. So we have to do We have to really know his possibilities and stop his attack. So very much restrictive and prophylactic. Right? So king g2. Okay, he decides to come back with the knight. Well, why don't we go over to f5? He decides, I mean, he kind of, hey, he could change his mind. He could have gone to c4, shuffling around based on what white does. And as white's thinking, he's like, during white's turn, during Nimzovic's turn, he might be, coming up with new ideas, like based on how things shift. And he's like, well, I have a 10 minutes while you're thinking. Oh, never mind. I want to try something else. No harm done. Okay, so, but the idea there, though, is if he had gone f5, he would take this way. But now, you see the idea? E6, right? Let's do this. Let's get rid of the knight. Then let's take. Now he doesn't even have this move, because if the knight's there, I'm just thinking about that was even better, because now he can't even go there at all. Before the knight would, nope, nothing. Even pawn, probably he can get away. Yeah, he can get away with that. Just 2 pawns up for nothing. You're not actually. I like it. I like this. Let's go. Let's stick with. Oh, even better. Trade everything off. He can't move. You take the rook. Boom. Now we can do that. Are we up 2 pawns, right? Yeah, 7-5, completely winning endgame. And there's nothing there's just nothing to do. You want to double up somehow, just go king f7. And again, your rooks will work on the c file. Just like in the game, he goes to 4th rank. You can push the pawns, break through more, get in there, force trades. Can't stop the trades if you come in, otherwise you try and threaten mate. But again, look at black's position, nice and tight. Don't like the g5 pawn, but that could become a target actually. So he's coming around, but now that there's no more prospect really, shifts this way. Comes over here, looks at that f5 square again. There's the 4th rank. That's going to be vital. Remember I talked about the f pawn? Seemed like a distant prospect. Now it's becoming more real, right? Okay, king up. Now this move I actually don't quite understand yet. This move I've thought about. I think I looked at it once and I had some comprehension of it, but it's actually a very complicated move that he takes this way. Well, he understands this, but he's actually enabling the queen to capture. It's very strange, right? And she doesn't take. He wants the f pawn, right? So he enables this move. Well, if he takes this way, he could, but then the rook takes. So that's not really worth it. Why give him that, right? So interestingly, he takes this way, and then his king is going to go to g6 and just stop everything. But the queen can take. She doesn't. I think it's this move. Only move is here. What am I missing? Oh, right. I've looked at that. You go here. And now you have the check and you can take this one. Yeah, if he goes here, just take. And we're still coming in. It's actually very similar to the game. Pretty much the same thing happens. So he's like, well, look, he knows it. It looks scary, but he knows there's nothing's happening to his king. Look at white's king. He's getting behind the scenes. White, not so much. Does that make sense? It's tricky, right? But that's that's the most kind of obscure move of the game that you would allow the queen to take the pawn right near your king. But you have rook. Oh, there you go. Also, it's think of it like this. He's losing his h pawn, but it's kind of like in the other position where you take on if he takes and the rook takes. He's losing the h pawn for probably the f pawn, but he would also enable the rook to come on the h file. So he actually, even though it looks like white benefits, it actually flips on him and black benefits, right? By taking that. Does that make sense? Black gets that half open. Let me look at the domination of the rooks. It's all about black's rooks. See? Does that make sense? Just look at, you can just see the power of the rooks. Look at white's. Okay, you guys got it? Oh, I wasn't sure. All right. Well, Alejandro's back and they had to go. Alejandro's back. All right. So knight f5. So just super instructive. It's one of my favorite, overall, it's one of my favorite games. But yeah, just kind of get this thing, seared in your memory, right? Okay, look at that. Outpost. So the knight would have liked to use it. Rook's fine using it too. Now that he's gripped those light squares. So basically he's gripping light squares and he's attacking dark squares as well. Like specifically the f4 pawn. Heavy artillery coming in. You see it? Heavy artillery, the rooks and queens. 4th rank pressure. Queen could come in soon. Here comes the queen. Take. Here she comes again. Again, utter domination now. So slowly creeping in. Pretty cool, right? Just utter dominate. So you only got 2 pieces left, 2 attackers. That's all you need. Completely, again, spellbound. And this is restriction. This is not, this is not prophylaxis. because he's not. Prophylaxis was the stuff over here to make his king safe, to stop. That's a very clear example. Again, getting to the heart. It's very complicated getting to the heart of that, right? This is clear. The prophylaxis usually, make something safe like your king, or stop the dangerous push, which would have affected his king and freed the pieces simultaneously. Now, this is pure restriction, because it's not like there's the danger though is if you come in, he does have counterplay. You stop it. Okay, you're stopping counterplay. That's the big thing. That's what you, like I said about my game last night, stopped his counterplay. But yeah, if he goes here, just take, trade, come down. We have to get into that a little bit. I think you go here. And you go here. Oh, you'd actually take this way now. And he has to trade rook, so you lose another pawn. So you can't even take it. Yeah, he's just up a pawn. He's pretty much stopped the main prospect. So he's fine with that rook and pawn endgame, unless he has something even better. But yeah, so point is, I mean, he's tying him down because he doesn't want to just drop his pawns. Okay, but now you start seeing that X-ray really powerful. And so he's got him tied up. Why not? A lot of times he'll be attacking somewhere. He'll kind of reach his max for now. Then he's like, well, let's insert another variable. Let's expand over here. Why not? Now we can use this as a potential winning prospect, right? Because as he's so tied down, look, we can win the D pawn. We can win the F pawn. We can go for a back rank mate. Maybe win the H pawn and push this H pawn. Maybe we can squeeze him and maybe we win the B pawn and get a queen. Maybe we go B3 and anchor a rook or a queen. I think that's what he does, actually anchor a rook here. So you see there's it's just his prospects keep increasing. And on the other hand, white does not have the ability to restrain black because he's just playing so well. Well, he's restraining his opponent, so his opponent can't restrain him, right? Keep increasing your, again, fundamentals. You maximize your piece activity, you minimize theirs. That's what he's doing. Okay, now we're going to the back rank. We're ready to go. Beautiful, right? Behind the scenes. Here comes another one. Can't hold this position, right? It's over. Look at that. Waiting move. Beautiful. He's pushing him towards, there's going to be two Zugzwangs, I think. Again, you see why Zugzwang comes about, where you have to make a losing move, because he's running out of good moves. He's sort of entombed, right? Not as dramatic, but this one's more about getting behind the scenes, hitting all the weaknesses, and simultaneously stopping everything. Look at that. Waiting move. Waiting move. Okay, now we attack. Not so much waiting. But see, he's letting his opponent run out of prospects. He could check him, I guess, but then I think there's no more check after king. But he'll set that up. He'll set up the check when it's ready. And he resigned. I think it's that. Yeah, he was waiting for that move because the rook's gone, right? Okay, where does she go? Let's go look at a sample. Let's say the queen goes like here. How do we win this? It's not going to be a queen check because then the queen. I guess it should be the rook check, right? Queen check, they just block. I don't think there's anything there. So you do rook check. Now they can't go here because, okay, imagine in your head before we move, why can't the king run away to F2? Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, right? But why can't they go to F2? Queen. You win the queen with the rook or the queen, right? Just check and take or check and take. So they get skewered on the second rank. So what does it say here? I like this quote. One might suppose from this game that Capablanca had carefully read my system and then used all the theories contained therein against their inventor about, blockade and restriction, all these positional ideas. Maybe so. So
yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Funny, right? Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah.
Kind of in jest, but no, it's probably actually true.
Well, he knew he was going to play him, so he studied all his tactics.
Yeah, regardless, no matter who he is, yes, but it doesn't even matter because no matter how good they are, if you have a chance to do these things, you'll do them, right?
Yeah.
But I think, okay, so here we are. It's just an example to see how strong it is. He can't go there. He has to go here or here. If he goes here, he's gonna get hit by the check. I mean, everything's crumbling, right? He's gonna take all the pawns and the king is stuck. So I assume they go here. I think we still go rook g4 and we're going for a mate now. I don't see anything better. I think we're hitting the pawns. Now the queen's going to come to f1. Pretty hard to stop that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And keep in mind, even if we don't mate him, we can go into a favorable king and pawn endgame or rook and pawn endgame. What do we have? I think it's even pawns, right? We've matched every pawn. Yeah. You don't have to count. We just see everything's matched. Those are, if that were here, it'd be matched. So we want queen f1 check. Okay, he has to try to stop queen f1. What does he do? Here, let's go back again.
Queen F1 check.
Can't do it yet. There must
That
be
that wouldn't do it.
there must be another restrictive. I mean, you just keep sneaking around. Okay. I mean, if you could win this pawn, you could win the other pawn, and you could, you know, if you win 2 pawns, even one, because once you win the F pawn, the G pawn is going to fall too. But I mean, he's in a near Zugzwang again because you just can't do anything. That's why you had to make those waiting moves too. Okay, what about this move? How about this? Can he even defend this pawn? He has to move. Okay, he moves the rook. He's hanging on for a second here. But I think we have another. Okay, there's got to be another Zugzwang. How about this move? Okay, king can't move. If the queen moves, you take the D pawn. I mean, he's got to be running out of moves here. He can't go too far away, so you go queen F1. Okay. So what is he supposed to do? He can't go here because then he blocks the queens. Yeah, if you get the D pawn, everything everything collapses. So
I'll be right back.
One by one, everything collapses basically. Well, let me check. Okay, let me check on the computer. Let's see what it says. Like the most efficient win. I'm sure it's pretty quick. Let's see the best line that it gives after queen C2. We can click on engine. Yeah, someone's already done this. Oh, it's a mate in 4. I didn't see it. Oh, interesting. We do go for the queen G1 check. Oh, by the way, if you do the check and they block, even if we obviously have something better. Oh, then we have the pawn push probably. But even if it's just, you know, you can trade and take the F pawn, everything. Again, if you take the F pawn, you're going to lose the G pawn probably and the D pawn. Just take all their pawns. Even if it's not mate, you win all the pawns, easy win. But what are we seeing here? Oh, of course. Because
I didn't see it.
Oh, I didn't look at that. It's just a fork.
I didn't see it.
What's that?
Yeah, I forgot about the fork.
Yeah, it's just a fork. So queen check. When the rook, here, I'll make arrows on it. So the queen checks. When the queen blocks, then we take this, which, I mean, obviously you're winning the rook. But then
check, and then that's it.
But then they go here. And then what? Rook takes?
Rook takes F.
Yeah, queen blocks. Mate.
That's game.
Yeah. You got him in the little ladder, mate. Well, that's kind of, yeah, nice one. But yeah, I mean, but like intuitively, once you're behind the scenes like that, there can't be a defense. Okay, wait, hold on. Let's be fair, just so we know. Let's look at the very best one. So not queen C2. Let's see. I mean, this is easy for, even if it's not the strongest computer. This is the easy stuff for the computer because it's pure, you know, just pure mate stuff for winning easily. Someone's already done that. I don't even know what Olga is. It's another. Oh, now it's mate in 21. What is it looking at? Oh, wait. Oh, it's looking at H. Oh, it's saying that basically the queen. Okay, if the queen hangs, it's obviously okay. That's too easy. Let's give them another move. Let's say they do not allow. What was the move? No, they just have no defense. Oh, right. Let's say they guard the rook, right? So you don't have the fork. Okay, that's another try. Let's try this. Just see what it says, because the computer will do a better job than us at this. We can spend, but this is not the main point. Now it's a mate in 5. So even though you don't get the rook, it's saying queen G1. What's next? Oh yeah, you can't block. No matter what, you can't block with the queen. That's the problem. King H3 then. Then rook F2. That's nasty. So that's the idea. No matter what happens, you're going to go queen G1. They can't stop that when the queen moves. So no matter what, you go queen G1. If they move the queen, you take the rook. If they move the king, let's see. You're going to have rook F2 no matter what. If they go up to H4, still rook F2, rook takes H2. Everything falls, right? And you also have queen G4. When you chase that, the queen moves away. You have queen G4 mate. So the queen has to, no, she can't cover. She can go to, no, she can't go anywhere on the diagonal. So you have queen G4 mate coming to queen G1, king H3. You don't have it yet because the queen's there. So you go rook F2, chase the queen, get the mate, or you take H2 with mate. Everything's falling. It says queen G1 check, king H3, rook F2, king H4, queen takes H2 check, rook H3, queen takes F4 check, queen G4, and you take the queen with mate. Anyway, everything, it's like you weave around him, right? You're weaving all around. You're hitting him from every angle. So, but again, like, you know, if you're there, like, you know, you can calculate it, but we just want to see some nice wins. But either he gives away the queen immediately or he gets mated immediately within a few moves. So yeah, there's that game. It's really nice, isn't it? I mean, they're both nice, but this one is, see, the other one is a lot of activity, not full restriction, but this game is just take away all his oxygen, give him nothing.
So David, question.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if I missed it, but why wouldn't he just push the H pawn, H5 pawn, and check the king, and then the king doesn't have too much flight square.
There is a line like, hold on, where were we?
I don't know if you talked about
right
it.
here. Okay, the last move. Okay, the move that he did that made his opponent resign is here. Well, it'll have even more impact now. I mean, may as well insert this move. And then there might be lines where you do it and you take with F4 with check, right? Or you just leave it there and let it anchor your queen or something. But certainly there are lines. Remember the line where the rook was on G4, then you play H4, just take away all their oxygen, basically. So yeah, certainly you might insert that. But you don't even need to.
Okay.
There were lines where it's just quicker. Oh, and you missed this one, I think. So you saw this one. Okay, we did this one. It's the same exact concept. See, when you go check here, they can't block because you take the rook with check, and then you know, there's the line. Wait, what was it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was this one. It was this one.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Yeah.
And that's mate.
Yeah.
And then look at that king. The king is helping the mate happen. I mean, it wouldn't matter. Use queen H3, but and then what was the other one? And then if he moves, what was the line? Rook F2. We didn't look at that. That's the easiest way. Again, forget about the F pawn. We could take it in some cases. Actually, I think we might take it this line. What was it? But what she has to give herself up, right? Because you're threatening a mate on H2. And again, if she takes, where's your mate? She moves away from an important square. We don't need to take the queen and deal with the queen versus rook win.
G4.
We just have an immediate mate because she's been decoyed from the G4 square. But I mean, when you have him in a stalemated position for the king, when he's in other words, a mating net, no stalemate. But yeah, the king is effectively stalemate. When you have him like that, it's done. So
Okay.
you guys have any thoughts about that one, about the last game?
No, that was very interesting as well. He put the squeeze in, definitely.
Yeah, I'll send you guys.
He did it in a different way, but it was a squeeze nevertheless.
Yes, whatever it takes. We don't care how we do it as long as we get them, right?
Right.
That's why it's good. I'm sending you guys if you want to click on the link. Actually, I'm sending you that one. Did I send you the full? I sent you the full study.
Yeah, you did. So yeah,
I
that's
sent you
why
him
he
and I
calls
sent
it
you
the heavy artillery, because it's the queen and the rook that's just gonna sap him up.
Yeah,
and he had a queen and a rook
the
too.
heavy artillery, the heavy pieces are the queens and rooks. Yeah, and he really maximized. I mean, just a beautiful game, you know. But again, I like. Oh wait, was I looking at it from? Oh, we didn't even look at it from black. I mean, it's somewhat like easier to see from his side too. But we saw it from both sides. That's fine. So again, I've used this idea a lot of times. Actually, I forgot the move order. Sometimes I went, oh, that's what he did. No, that's what he did. Because I remember queen b6 before c5. Yeah, that's fine. I may have done it immediately. No, I think I did the same thing. Because you know, if you do this first, I guess it doesn't really matter, I think, but queen b6 guards the b pawn. So he's inviting a queen trade, but I mean, keep in mind that these positions, white gets a little overextended. So black certainly isn't unhappy with the endgame. You're not going to, okay, look, this is just, actually, he might not even take it and let the knight. He probably just goes like this. Like, okay, you want to take? I'll take. And, oh, you want to try to fork me? I might even go king d7 because we're in endgame and I am fine in the middle. It's closed. I mean, I might try and blast it open or something. But yeah, maybe. I don't know. There's a few ways. I think you can probably take it as well. Still do that. A few ways you can handle it. Kick the knight next. You know, there are a lot of ways to. But I don't think he's afraid of that end game. He should be able to do very well. Nimzovich. Oh, that's funny. Queen b6. It says it's favored by Nimzovich. And then he goes queen a6. Oh, so he actually wants to trade queens. Well, think about it. Remember, oh, there's also the good bishop versus bad bishop. We got the good guy. Bishop f8, right? So we're going to use it to win. Sometimes people even play c4 and push and close it, but generally when they have the bishop, the good bishop, the bad bishop outside. Now you generally don't do that if the bishop is on d7 or c8 because you're just not going to see the light of day. But if you go like before you play that bad quote bad bishop you might play b6 and might make it to a6. That's another idea. But yeah, think about it. Also, if white is the one trying to attack your king over here, if you trade queens. Queen a6 idea. Why not? So he is literally using that idea against Nimzovich, Lynn. Literally. But I think it's also, of course, referring to like the general concept.
Well, I think that's smart because you know, in any type of a sports, your opponent is going to study what you do. And the Super Bowl was a very good example of that. But they're going to study, and this is what Capablanca did. He studied Nimzovich. because he knew he was going to be a heavy. He was going to need heavy artillery to.
Yeah. And the way, well, however, but the way that works a lot of times is specifically it's specific opening preparation, which clearly I suppose he was doing, and two, it's psychological in terms of the type of play your opponent wants. So, for example, if you know your opponent likes static position, a lot of players are like that. There's a guy who played next to me. He keeps winning. We won 3-1 last night. So we actually won. I think I mentioned, we actually won. We had two teams that merged because it was a little quieter coming out of the pandemic. So we ended up having smaller teams. Some people didn't come back, unfortunately. They just didn't want to play in person, I guess. And so we easily have like 6 or 7 people on the team, and it's 4-player matches. So we still have, some reserves. But so we did lose, unfortunately, to the other team that we actually we finally bested them in the last season. They always get us by like a point. But anyway, so the guy next to me, you can tell. I mean, I know his games. He just he's positional. He wants to squeeze someone. So if you can make it dynamic and messy, he wouldn't like it. It's just a style. So against Nimzovich, well, and again, like whatever it takes to win. Sometimes the person's super dynamic. So sure, you can squeeze them, but you can also just have a slugfest if that's what it takes. Just because they like open positions doesn't mean they're going to play perfectly, right? You can still beat them at their own game. I mean, that's just obviously it's chess, and people like to play crazy attacking moves, But yeah, certainly that's your prep. But just in general, very strong. And it's interesting. Keep that in mind. Both players, they went to the flank, funny enough, and then they decided to come back. Remember, the other guy went to H5, then he went F6 and back again. And my opponent did that last night, but it didn't work. But these guys did it, and it did. So anyway, why don't I show you that? I'll show you guys the position from the game. I think there's a restrictive element. You guys want to see that real quick from last night?
Sure.
And not as nice as these guys, but hey, I'm using the same concepts.
Hey, a win is a win.
Right? Half open T file he uses, and the 4th rank he uses the weaknesses. What's that?
A win is a win.
Yeah. No, I felt pretty good about it, though. It was a smooth win. Stockfish approved.
I mean, all of them are pretty.
What's that?
All the wins are not going to be pretty.
Yeah, no, I was pretty happy with it, though. I was happy. It wasn't as good as them, but it felt like a good way to start the year. Coming out of I had a bad tournament that became a good tournament. I was like, okay, let's keep it going, and I was able to. Oh wait, something did. Okay, 1 second. It's pretty easy to get in. Oh wait, log in my email. Because I have it. It's a private study of my league. So it's to not, like we talked about, so as to not help my opponents look up my games. Although the best team, the one that's usually the top team, they actually have a database of everybody they play. They share it. That's pretty smart. So then they can, so they get as many games as they can to be able to prepare against people, because you play all the same people. So they basically know what people do, and they end up using it to prep.
Right.
You might not have every single game, but at least the people they play, they know what openings they like. And just like someone's style, you tend to know what kinds of openings they like to play. Okay. Oh, interesting. We have a German Bundesliga, but you actually have I thought you'd have more local players, but we actually have some of the best in the world. We have a Nakamura Anon MVL. I just happened to notice that, and we still have. Oh yeah, Huschenbeth. He's a German streamer, or he makes content. And Huschenbeth he's down a pawn, but he's got. Oh, that looks messy. He's down a pawn and everything, but yeah, that's interesting. Any other top players going? Where you think of the top? Wait, where are the other ones? You would think that I don't see the top players there. Why does it say they're in it? Let's go to round 9. I don't know. I'm not seeing them. It said that Nakamura was in it. Not seeing him. I don't know, whatever. Maybe they're different versions or something. Anyway, so I'm gonna go to my studies. Let me just pause it. Oh, it's fine. Okay, so learn, study, and how many do I have? A lot of studies. Oh, interesting. Win with F4. That is not mine, but I like that's what I did last night. And the usual setup.
It was one of the later games. Hikaru drew against Anon.
Oh, okay. Well, this is your setup in a bird. Interesting. 95. So this is a nice. Yeah, it's nice. You have pin on the knight. You could do like this. So anyway, that's a nice one. You guys can, if you want, but I'll show you the bird as well. My private studies. So we have some of my students looked at and whatnot. Where is BCCF? So is this in my games? Nothing too secret, but yeah. Okay. So here's the one from last night. I haven't really analyzed it in depth, but I'll just show you the restrictive moments where he was trying to, I think, yeah, I think there were some key moments there. Let's see. Oops. Yeah. There it is. Just trying to move this. This thing's getting in the way. All right. You guys can see the whole board?
Yes.
Okay. So it got interesting. I mixed it up right away out of the bird. Then I mixed it up. It became like an English with C4. It's kind of a hybrid. Because I didn't like the fact that I couldn't. Oh, why is this thing in the way? There it is. I didn't like the fact that I couldn't play B3. I was like, I should have gone B3 first. But anyway, so usually I don't do that because he'd be challenging me on the diagonal. So I'm like, okay, let's just. But here's the difference. He doesn't want to guard it with E6 because he's already moved the pawn to open up his bishop once. So he create dark surface. So I think it worked out okay. Let me get rid of these annoying arrows though. Okay. But now he ends up losing a lot of center. So just by virtue of, see, I haven't pushed my center yet, but I have this massive center pawns. And I create, like, you guys know Dutch, like the Leningrad Dutch, and black goes F5 and G6. So now I'm the one going F4 and G3. So again, you see, it doesn't really matter which side you have a lot of times. It's the same difference. So he's trying to contain me. He's trying to restrict me with that move. See? Because he knows my bishop should be strong. You know, it's his queen, come check me. I don't really care about the check is nothing. I just move my king or block. So I go A4. This ended up being, I was pretty happy about this. I thought for a while, I'm like, what do I do? Do I push my central pawn? Do I move my queen? I'm like, oh, if I move my queen, I have to trade. I don't really want to trade yet. Don't see anything. But I thought, oh, why don't I do this? Because if I get A5 in, I don't give him the check or I kick him out of there. And I have bishop A3 behind it. So look at the E7 pawn, which is just a useful place to be, right? Try to chase this rook away so I can get queen B3 and look at his F pawn. And knight G5, and if he moves the E pawn, he can't block me. So I'm like, it's kind of a crude idea, but why not? Right? But it all fits in. So, but the other thing is that when I get A5 in, oh, also I didn't like bishop A3. I'm like trying to think, I'm like, look, I really want this move, but then the knight's going to come here. And I can't go here to kick the knight because then he takes this one. So you see, I was thinking about that. So effectively I'm restraining him because I'm restraining his piece activity, but allowing my piece activity simultaneously to happen. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I'm gaining space. So I was happy with that because I think this is the thing. Because I was like thinking I'm like, what do I do here? How do I like my position? You know, I got these pawns. I'm not sure if I want to push them yet. So I just think, okay, there's nothing wrong with pushing this wing pawn. Make it into we'll make it dangerous. But of course, his goal is to then fix it in place and try to win it. But I'm also fixing his pawn in place. So why not? Let's come out there. Okay, he gets to attack. Now the other thing is that now I'm anticipating C4. See, again, I get to do what I want, which restricts him, but I restrict him from getting at me. So you see, it's always interplay, right? I think it's a good example. Now, I could have done C4 right away. Actually, I think it was acceptable to do it now. Computer says I'm slightly better, so you know, it's a comfortable position, right? And again, whenever I want, I can start pushing. Computer actually liked pushing. I was thinking about, I'm like, you know what? I like this shift because it's consistent with going after. You'll see. So I keep it. Also, he wants this move. See? I'm like, well, I'm not going to give you that. Restriction again. Okay, you go C5. That's pretty much what I want. Pawns fixed in place. Becomes a very weak pawn. I want my bishop here, see? Maybe I maneuver my knight here. I try to win his pawn. Can't go B6, I take it. So B6 becomes weakened here. So now it's just a matter of time until I can really try to pick off those pawns. Now I got this pawn. I still have to worry about that. I got one weakness. He's got two, see? He's looking at my pawn. Look at the difference. C pawns. My pawn could be guarded by a pawn. His can't. That's very important. See. So that's what allows. What's that?
E5, knight E5 in this scenario right here.
Yes, exactly. 95. Well, not yet because I do it at the right moment. Because if I do it now, I just trade it. I'm not ready yet. But I do it. Yeah, I definitely go 95. I just have to time it right. Well, actually, so he's kind of maneuvering. So again, he's provoking. I mean, this does affect things later. I have to be careful. But at the same time, I wanted to play bishop E3 and not be hit by knight G4. I was going to like move my king to come out. I'm like, okay, well, now you don't have that anymore. Now I don't give him time for tempo to come here. Even then I could see before I play 95, you can take my bishop. So I said, no, now if you go bishop D7, I'm ready for your move. And he definitely doesn't want to do that because then it just destroys his structure and I get the bishop. Yeah, that's just probably that's lost. Computer says, you know, plus what? Plus 1 point, plus 1. Just, but I pretty much lost strategically, right? It's a terrible position. I can easily guard the pawn and then shift my rook and stuff like that. Or I can just go pick off, you know, use some, but like it's just nice, you know, just a nice advantage with the bishop pair and the better pawn structure. Okay, so now I'm coming after this. So the idea here was to guard this pawn because I want to move this. So I'm preventing him from taking my pawn. Pretty direct prophylaxis because I know he'll take that if I move my rook. Pretty much it's going to happen. But I want to shift, so it's an attacking idea, and I can unleash this, you know, come after this. But also it allows me to go here while defending this pawn. And also, how about this idea? That's what ultimately wins the pawn, right? Queen f2. See the shift? That's the dream scenario. So I get my king out of the way. There's the prophylactic move, right? See, get the king off the diagonal too, right? So prophylaxis there. That's what I'm saying. I think there was a lot of prophylaxis. Now I go for my attack. Keep in mind, my bishop's a little loose. Right, I gotta watch out. Oh, by the way, he has this move. See? Because the pin, I don't know what it's gonna do, but it's there. Get away from it. Now 95, it's time for this move. I think it was correct, yeah. Because the thing is, if I had gone here first, he could have come back again. And now I don't get to play 95 as easily, right? Maybe I could have, but I do it first. So here's the idea. Now it's time to strike. This is where it comes to a head, right? Because then I hang the pawn effectively. It's not really losing the pawn because you see what's going to happen when he takes. What am I trying to do? What's unleashing? It's ready. I have a lot of potential energy.
Your bishop.
The bishop. So he can't take with the bishop most likely, but there's something else. What else would it unleash if I take back?
The queen.
The queen battery. Yeah, you got a pawn here.
Yeah, you got the queen battery.
And so I'm working both angles. So then now it's starting, it's saying +2 now, becoming decisive. So he does a good move. He just guards it. He's just trying to, you know, not give me what I want. Just hang on there. Now it's a question. I was thinking, should I go after this one or this one? First, I take this one. And now I'm threatening to win the exchange, right? So,
yep.
He can't. Yeah, that's why he can't. Oh, check this. I was looking at this one. Now he tries to say, okay, you want to take me? I'm going to take you. Nope, doesn't work. C5. Kick him out of there, guard my rook, and then he loses the exchange at least. Pawn in the exchange. Oh, no, just the exchange. It's clean exchange. So he takes this way, which is correct. Now, this was the right move because rather than getting hasty, this would be a blunder. Like a hasty to take it. Oops. And I probably lose. Am I losing here? Wait, what? Oh, what was I thinking? Yeah, no, I could have done it, but the point is, look, if I have a choice, why would I take with the bishop and go away when I can have this nice little camp in here? See, that's an example where he's a little contained, but he has room and no one's coming in. So watch out for G3 actually. But now I come here, I get my rook in the game, right? He's been waiting, right? So finally he comes out. Now it's time to strike. See, I've restricted him enough. But of course, here we go again. H5. And if I go H4, actually that's my best move. But then you have to worry about this move, and you have to worry about this move. So I just decided not to do that. Now I go all out. No, this is just as good. Yeah. See, the eval doesn't change. I think it's just as good. But you have to figure out why. But I'm going for, I messed it up though. Now I was playing under a minute, but I had 30. I want to make sure I locked it in to get to this position. But I get 30 seconds added each move. So here. So D4, D5. No, I should have followed through here to make my job easier. I could have finished it right away.
What was that? Why was that a blunder? It was such a big blunder.
Which move? This?
His queen going to G5 because the eval bar just went.
I think he's supposed to. Oh, because I have D5 and I chase the bishop and I get this pawn.
Oh, so yep.
I thought he needs to do this. But then, I have a better endgame because if he takes with the. Now he has this weakness too. If he takes with the bishop, well, then I just take my pawn, don't I? What do I do here? This is going to collapse no matter what. Let's say I go here. What if he goes back again? What would I do here actually? What's the best move? Do I just push? Oh, I just guard it. And then I win a second. Did I already win one pawn? No, I didn't win a pawn yet, but once I win this, probably win. Yeah, I'm in. Then it's +3, it says. It's just everything's beautifully placed. Pawn at the center, it's collapsing. So this move, but I messed it up. I did the right move. No, it's actually said it's just as good. You see the eval? It's fine, but you know what it was? I hallucinated. Well, I didn't notice the lateral movement because I was thinking, oh, if I take you, I'm like, oh no, I can't do that because if I do this, game over, right? What it says, I'm still winning. Oh, right. There's because no, I mean I saw that. I'm like, I don't want to. Wait, what is going on? Okay, let's say he goes here. Okay, you get a queen. He takes. Oh, you take back with tempo and you keep your queen. That's crazy. Wow, I didn't even think. But see, the problem is I was so fixated on. Oh, I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. But funny enough, that would have worked. But I was low on the clock, so I'm like, you know what? Let's just chop off your pawn. It was good enough. A little messy. I'm like, look, I just go back. And you know what's funny? Because I was tempted to go here, but I was like, let's not be on that diagonal because I knew that I had coverage. But either one's okay. It's still winning. But it gets messy. Okay, I take my pawn. And then it got super crazy, right? Because I go here. I want that pawn. He has to take, check. And now the way I deal with all this, I just take. I just plow through. Because then see now it's no, but interestingly, that is still a restriction. Where is the restricted elements? Let's see. So, well, what was the last restriction? Now this one, you'll see, look, I chose to get a little loose. Computer actually says that. That would have been another prophylactic move that I didn't do. That would have been better, right? Would have made my life easier, actually. But I didn't do that. I went all out. So there's a time when you got to get loose sometimes to, let's see, and I'm going after. But it's like, it's a winning position, though, so it's okay. But again, then I get the F7 pawn. But by taking this, I'm preventing a queen check. Too much queen checks, right? Too many queen checks. So when he takes, see, simultaneously, when I take back, I'm guarding the bishop and I'm looking here. So he just gives up the exchange, but he doesn't have perpetual. But yeah, so for example, now he doesn't have any more queen checks, so he's restricted. Checks here, I just block. So my king is fine, but that's the final restrictive the final restriction is don't give him checks. Minimize. But then he gives up the exchange, which is just losing because he runs out of checks again. Check. If he checks again, no problem, easy. Queen F2, he can take the pawn. Yeah, it's just lost. You know, you just push the pawn, he can't do anything. Up in exchange and 2 pawns currently. So it's too much. And his king's exposed. You know, it's funny, I hallucinated. I'm like, oh, I got you. Because I'm like, oh, wait, my rook's been. Didn't work. But whatever. It was actually funny if it was actually correct, but I just got lucky that it worked out in a way. I mean, I have enough material to win, right? But I have to be careful. So he went back, then he makes my job easier. And then he's out of checks. And now this was correct because this is the easiest way to win because I'm going to trade queens. If I trade queens, it's game over, right? Exchanging these pawns. So he can't take, see? Easy win. Same thing that happened, basically. So I'm just looking for an efficient win. So what he did in the game, check, check, check. So you see, I force him to come back again. Check, 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 trade, game over. He took, then he resigned. But yeah, so then it's obviously, right, these pawns are coming and U0. So yeah, that's why I thought of it. I was happy with the so we saw a lot of restricting, but interestingly, things got a little messy when I did not play it. Again, the thing I didn't like about H4, I mean, this is a good move too, but the thing I didn't, wait, where was H4 good? Yeah, see, before I let it loose, I'm so tight here. Everything's nice and safe. If I go H4, maybe I didn't like this move, but I probably just move back. Wait, what? It doesn't even matter. Let's see. See, computer always finds something. But as a human, like, do I want to give him this? Oh, what's going on? Oh, you chase the queen off the diagonal and you win the bishop. So yeah, but I didn't look at that as a human. You know what I mean? Like, I'm up a piece now, right? But I was low on time and I said, let's go for it. I mean, I saw this idea. I'm like, okay, I'm pretty happy with that. Because if he doesn't do this, he's given up a piece almost. Then it's over. He moves back, you know, that's not good. So, wait, what was the other idea? Yeah, if he goes here. No, you're going to kick the bishop out anyway. Yeah, no matter what, you're going to kick it out. There's nothing else he can do. So he tries this, which is a good attempt, but he doesn't have any mating ideas. The king is safe. And there you go. Look at the bishop. It acts like a pawn. And I didn't think about that, but the rook also, everything's guarded. So yeah, I could have done, it would have been easier, but I didn't mind plowing through either. That was kind of a fun finish, right? And then we see it just come in with the heavy artillery, right? Great. Do you guys have any questions about the game? Just want to show you quickly, but yeah, I mean, definitely got to restrict him a lot, right?
Yeah, you did.
As in terms of prophylaxis, there were quite a few prophylactic moves too. Like I moved the rook back to a3, so I didn't give him a bishop tempo with bishop d7. What was another prophylactic move? Oh, I guarded the pawn here, a5, so I can move my rook to b3. King h2 gets the king off the diagonal and covers the h and g pawns. Comes off the file where the rook is. Actually a lot of prophylactic moves. And then it's time to attack, right? I'm like, okay, I've had enough of that. Now, but notice that every piece, rather than getting hasty and taking the pawn, mobilize the final piece. Why not? Everything's where it wants to be, and then it's done. It should be winning now. But yeah, final prophylaxis would be h4, but I didn't do that. And then I just kind of let loose. Was there any more? But effectively the bishop, what I did before still has its impact, like the bishop on g2. But yeah, now it's just the only prophylaxis now is actually this move, taking the pawn's prophylactic because it stops the queen checks and it covers. And when he takes back, look, I'm currently hanging my bishop on c5, but this gives me tempo on the queen and the rook. Yeah. Then I just have to be a little cautious. Yeah, but then even a move like this, I was thinking about playing d5, d6, but then it's a little loose, right? That would have worked, but why not just do this move? Because I cover my c pawn, I tuck it back, nothing left, game over, right? So yeah, I was pretty happy with it for the first round. Just you can win, like I said, you can win a lot of games like that. Just follow through, but in order to do that, you really have to know their prospects, right? Had to really try to understand everything that they could do, right?
Yeah.
So positive, no.
That's good. That's good.